There exists a world in the Fate multiverse that simply should not be. A singularity in time which defies the natural order of both the world and one single, solitary man. In this world, the Hunter of the Red Plains never existed. There would never be a heroic spirit bound to the counterforce that could manifest in the Archer class. However, the void left by the heroic spirit Emiya would not be left unfilled. As a matter of fact, he would be replaced by the origin of his ideals.
Go change the world. You can do it. I'll stay with you until that day comes.
Kiritsugu Emiya is a character marred by both love and hate. In the core of Shiro Emiya, I made the mistake of claiming that Shiro is an uncontroversial and beloved character. I was wrong. I certainly love Shiro, as does a vocal portion of the Fate fandom, but just as a huge part of the fandom likes Shiro, an equally sizable part of it finds him insufferable, childish, and obnoxious. I could not disagree more with these people, but I was wrong to claim the character is universally beloved. So let me rectify that mistake by not making the same one here. Kiritsugu is not everyone's favorite. I think a lot of people would praise the quality of his writing, myself certainly included, but many would do so in the same breath that they'd call him an absolute bastard. And honestly, I can't even disagree with them. I love Kiritsugu, but the man is a monster just as much as he is a hero. In the fandom, as in the Nasuverse, while some people would look to Kiritsugu and see the devil incarnate, others would look past his darkness and see a savior broken by the weight of the world. So, which is he? Is Kiritsugu a hero or a villain? Let's not skip steps.
What do you want to grow up to be?
It's a secret.
Norikata Emiya was a mage studying the manipulation of time. Though his son would go on to use his magecraft in battle, Norikata was a researcher at heart, and like most mages, he was obsessed with reaching the root of all creation. With Time Alter, Norikata intended to accelerate time in an infinitesimally small area, using the extreme ease of manipulating such a small bounded field to push the limits of what his magecraft could accomplish. Through this window, Norikata could witness the natural end of the universe, reaching the root at the end of time within the span of a mortal life. However, the lifetime in question may not have been his. He believed his own research would require hundreds of years to conclude, and because of this, two things were certain. Norikata wanted to extend his life with magecraft if at all possible, but if this couldn't be done, he wanted a proper successor. Kiritsugu Emiya's mother was killed by mage hunters before he could even form a single memory of her. In order to escape the Mage Association, who had deemed his research too dangerous to continue, Norikata raised his son on the run. Their final home was the small island of Alimango, a place away from the eyes of the Association and safe enough for the Emiyas to settle in for a full year. By now, Kiritsugu might have been in middle school. All the while, Norikata is trying to solve the problem of how long his research will take to complete. He's come up with two possible solutions to his own aging body. The first idea, rooted in his own normal research, is to halt time within himself until he effectively becomes impervious to old age. Although he accomplishes this on smaller forms of life, like flowers, the idea of attempting this on a human subject is dubious to him. His second solution, on the other hand, would be his undoing. Though Norikata came close to his research, the potion stolen by an eager Shirley was nothing more than a disaster waiting to happen. The desire to prove her teacher's nature to the skeptical villagers claimed Shirley's life in an agonizing and horrifying way. Though to Kiritsugu, proving his nature was exactly what Shirley had accomplished. Norikata shows no care for the massive loss of life across all of Alimango. Nor does he care about Shirley's death in any way beyond the failure of his experiment. Kiritsugu realizes that if he had killed the transforming Shirley like she asked, he could have saved hundreds of lives. His hesitation cost him the chance to save them. He decides not to make the same mistake twice.
Did you see that, Shirley? I killed someone again. Just like I did with my dad. I didn't screw up like I did with you. I saved an awful lot of lives.
Kiritsugu Emiya did not inherit his dream from a loving father. He did not grow up immersed in fantasy and hope, nor did he ever find happiness in the pursuit of the justice he craved. His dreams brought him pain before they ever brought him pride, and they never once gave him the smallest amount of joy. His very first attempt at becoming the hero he dreamed of being forced him to kill his own flesh and blood. In the novel, Kiritsugu does so with only the gun his father kept in the drawer. Personally, I prefer the anime's version of this scene, wherein Kiritsugu stabs Norikata with the very same knife he refused to raise against Shirley. For Shiro Emiya in the Unlimited Blade Works timeline, his turning point is the moment he battles against his future self to defy his own loss of faith. In the Oath Under Snow timeline, his turning point lies in the moment he reaches out a hand to grasp at the final gift left to him by the girl he loved, only to, quite literally, find himself. For Kiritsugu Emiya, the moment he kills Norikata is one of two turning points. The first can exist independently, but the second can only exist in the aftermath of the first. That second turning point is the meeting of Kiritsugu Emiya and Irisveil von Einsburn.
I thought you sacrificed everything you had, including your family, in order to make it to this point. How can you simply deny the worth of something you work so hard to attain?
From here, two timelines are possible. The one you're probably more familiar with is Fate Zero, a story wherein Kiritsugu's drive to save the world couples with a simple, naive misconception about the limits of miracles. Fate Zero is a Greek tragedy focused around the idea that no matter how much he wants it, the dream Kiritsugu desires cannot be realized with chivalry and romance. Heroism is a beautiful word associated with a task that systematically breaks and tortures its own embodiments. For a certain kind of person, it might be possible to achieve that ideal while still retaining the humanity that made them want it. However, the more bound to the material world the hero is, the more impossible it becomes for them to truly remain impartial and stoic. For the Shiro Emiya of the Fate timeline, whose love was always bound to a future he could only dream of, it became possible to be the hero he desired to become without losing himself along the way. He eventually reached Avalon, reuniting with the once and future king. For the Shiro of Heaven's Feel, whose love was actively torn from his grasp by the cruel world they lived in, he became unable to maintain his dream in its original shape, and chose to impart his own emotion into his heroism, regardless of the harm it may cause to the world. For Kiritsugu, who sacrificed his love for the hope of a world where his dream could be achieved for all time, the realization that Irisveil's sacrifice had accomplished nothing in the end was the final nail in the coffin of his resolve. And so, as ever, with his final act of heroism, Kiritsugu saves the many, forgetting the cost for only a moment.
A big black hole opens up above my head, and then the world burns. Daddy looks at it all and just begins to cry.
This is one possibility. In the main timeline, Kiritsugu's marriage to Irisveil is both what brings him the greatest hardship of his entire life, and what leads him to finding the only true happiness he would ever know. Kiritsugu's duality lies within the nature of his origin, the concept of severing and binding. Like the fates weaving the tapestry of time, Kiritsugu has the capacity to cut and fuse the fabric of catastrophe, to save the work by trimming the thread. Though many strings may be discarded in the process, the act of doing so is what allows the tapestry to avoid fraying and withering away. The cost is that the weaver's heart must remain as cold as the steel that rends the cloth, else they burn the edges and incite the end themselves. In Fate Zero, Kiritsugu's heart shatters like frozen glass under the weight of hot coal. For refusing to choose a direction and attempting to have it both ways, Kiritsugu loses everything and is forced to start again from zero. For all the warmth Irisveil gave him, she was ultimately the cause of his coldest winter. But there exists another possibility. In the singularities of Fate Grand Order, a new heroic spirit is conceived from the hypothetical that Kiritsugu never became a master. Without the love of his late wife, Kiritsugu's heart would remain as steel, his blood as a conductor of nothing but time. Ironically, though his father's pursuit of eternal life spelled Norikata's end, it was Kiritsugu's refusal to live at all that bestowed him with the power to exist forever. The only remnants of the boy who refused to kill his only friend are the dagger that became his first noble phantasm, and the flowers for which his second is named. Phantasm Punishment and Kronos Rose are the tools that heroic spirit Emiya would pour what little love remained in him into, only to let it drip down the blade and clatter to the floor like ejected shells. Still, Even in this timeline, Kiritsugu would inevitably meet the pure white homunculus of the Ainsburn family and face Angra-Mainyu. Just as a shred of his former humanity sparks to life as his eyes meet Iris Fields for the first time, perhaps a fragment of pride reawakens when facing all the world's evils, alone.
I bet you'll come here in the end, after you're worn out by an eternity of abuse.
I don't think so. This is the fate I have chosen. I was never compelled to, nor did I ever give in.
That's precisely why. You should have broken down somewhere along the line. That way you would have had a chance at peace, even salvation. But because you couldn't stop being a hero of justice until the very end, even after death, you became a cogwheel in a mechanism like the Counterforce. Surely that's proof you're on the losing side.
My life led me to this point. I have no regrets. I do admit that we're fundamentally similar. You'll curse the world, and I'll save it. We are both devices with assigned roles. That's all.
Okay. If you're so sure, I guess I have to show you my respect. If curses and salvation face each other, there is no choice. We must both seek love and recognition in the way we know best. For such an occasion, why don't you name yourself? Unlike me, you remember your own name, yeah?
Emiya. Kiritsugu. Or so I was called when I lived as a human being. I will save the world. I did so until now, and I will forever.
There ain't a world that can be saved by humans. How long will you try to disprove that conclusion?
As his duality dictates the truth, it also dictates what might have been. Such is the core of Kiritsugu Emiya. Special thanks to Paladin-Tier patron VideoGamer75 and Exorcist-Tier patrons Daffyhat, Mickle Snorf, and Ryan Walters. Sorry for the long wait, everybody. I hope the video makes up for it.
To be burned again by purple flame once more. To be touched by violet tongues of fire and sparks of